Hello, and thank you for joining our webinar, Determine COVID-19 Workforce Impact, PeopleSoft HCM. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, then please use the questions box that's on your screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar, but if we are unable to get to your question, then we will personally respond to you. And for now, I will hand you over to my colleague, Jo.
Hello everyone, I just want to briefly introduce myself and to take you through the purpose of this webinar today. My name is Jo Randles, and I work for Cedar Consulting, part of the version 1 group. I've worked with PeopleSoft for over 20 years in both consulting and directly in HR operational roles. My specialism is helping organisations to maximise the value from their investment in their Oracle HCM applications. The purpose of our webinar today is to show you how PeopleSoft has evolved and can add real value even in the difficult times we now find ourselves in. We're all acutely aware that this pandemic is changing how we work, where we work, sometimes our capacity to work, and for some, roles may be changing through redeployment, which is so much change for people in a very short period of time, and as we emerge from the pandemic, continual change for people in adapting to new working practices and to a new normal. I'll take you through some of the features that exist within your PeopleSoft HCM solution today that can help your organisation to manage the people impact of the pandemic. For example, to provide a consistent channel for communication, to understand and assess key elements such as concerns staff might have, whether they're in regular contact with their manager, might they need a one-to-one with HR, their ability to return to on-site working and any barriers they might have in this respect, and also medical details such as who's tested positive, who's shown symptoms, who's in a vulnerable group, who's shielding someone. And then once you have all this data, how you can gain some insights from it using the latest tools that exist within PeopleSoft and view the trends that are emerging from it to help you manage what the data is telling you and to act on it. I'll also cover off an example of a mobility process. We're seeing many organisations that are moving staff around internally, even on a temporary basis. Portability of skills has become even more important in maintaining the right people capacity and capability. So we'll cover off how we can guide staff through a process to quickly capture and self-assess their skills, identify the roles that they are most interested in, establish whether they may be able to change their working pattern, whether they're able to work from a different location, and so on. And then to compare their skills to available roles to find the best fit to support you in planning out your redeployments. So let's now move to a demo.
Okay, the first thing that I'm going to show you is an employee-based activity guide process. In this example, we're reaching out to all employees every month to communicate, to ask questions in the form of a survey, and to make sure that key information is up to date and correct. So just to explain, the activity guide framework is being used here, and activity guides walk users through the steps and the tasks necessary to complete a process, with the task on the left and the content on the right. So as you can see, we're starting off with a video. And you'd want to include a video to make sure that you're getting, your key messages across to the workforce to keep them connected, to keep them engaged. You don't just have to have one, you can have several videos if helpful. You might, as people are returning to working on site, perhaps you'll consider a video to talk about the steps that are being taken in the workplace to reduce risk of exposure, to reassure. We can also include documents for staff to download and acknowledge as required. Then we can move into the questionnaire part. So this is, again, an example questionnaire. The PeopleSoft questionnaire framework is flexible. You can set up any questions and possible answers, and these are just a few examples to assess how people are impacted and to drive future actions accordingly. So we've got returning to on-site working. We can group our questions. So I've already filled this in, so if you're watching me typing, do we need a one-to-one? Are we in regular contact with your manager? And the medical information. Are you showing symptoms? Have you tested positive? You're in a vulnerable group, so on. So yeah, just to reiterate, we can have group of questions, we can have single choice, we can have multiple choice, we can have date-based questions, we can have free text. Someone did ask a question about whether we can have nested questions. That isn't something that's part of the delivered functionality, but could be possible with some extension. Okay, so I'm just going to save my answers, got my thank you, and I can move to the next task by clicking on the next button at the top right hand of the screen, or I could have done that through going the left hand side and moving to the next step. Our next step is to verify contact information. So in this example, we're just checking that we've got employees' phone numbers, that they're up to date and correct, and allowing them to edit where they're not. So let's do that. Next step, emergency contacts. And of course, you can bring any other PeopleSoft components into the activity guide process that you want your employees to view and validate. So that's fine. Fine, no edits needed there. Save. We come to the summary step. So it's a nice, simple activity guide. And what we've got here is a reminder of the tasks within the process and which ones have been completed. And I didn't actually watch the video, so it's reminding me of that. We can have mandatory steps, we can have optional steps. Within the activity guide process, we can have steps that are sequential or non-sequential. So these are factors for you to consider as you're configuring your activity guide. So I'll now complete. I'm going back to the home page. One other area I just wanted to point out to you is that PeopleSoft delivers a health and safety module, and it's been in the system for many years, actually. You'll find it under the workforce monitoring menu, health and safety. And one thing that you might want to consider is taking the data that has been collected in your survey and recording the outcomes of that within the health and safety module. Now, the health and safety module is really intended to be capturing information such as incidents, injuries, safety violations, and enabling health and safety type reporting. So that's what it's intended for, but you might find it useful to record the outcomes, as I say. So in this example, this employee, Ricardo, has reported to us on the 19th of June that they are showing COVID symptoms. And other things that you can record here are, whether there's any treatment that has been required, whether the individual's been hospitalised, etc. And again, in this example, Ricardo has visited the London office and attended a meeting where social distancing was observed, but it's also recorded in the notes as this person is showing symptoms. So this might be helpful for you. Other things that you can capture are nature of injury, whether there's unsafe acts, perhaps things, social distancing wasn't observed, if you feel that's helpful to record that, medical treatment, diagnosis, so showing symptoms, tested positive. And then, actually in this example, we're recording that this person is self-isolating for 10 days and will have restricted work days for 10 days. This is very much focused on the administrator entering the data, but I do know that it's in the roadmap to put something out there for self-service going forward. So again, something to keep an eye out for. Could be helpful if you want a placeholder to track the outcomes to enable your reporting in a different way. Okay, so just going back to our homepage. Now, because we've collected all of this information in our survey, what it means is we can report on it real time. We're able to then cut the data across multiple dimensions that exist in our PeopleSoft HCM solution: business unit, location, department, job code, etc. So what I'm going to take you to now is an example of a dashboard that contains some analytics, including examples in Pivot Grids and in Kibana. Let's have a look at the heat map. So what you'll see on the left-hand side is a range of prompts and the results set on the right. In this example, we're viewing the results of our May 2020 survey, where the question is, are you showing symptoms of COVID-19? And the answer is yes. We can see that 285 employees have answered yes, and we're able to then look at that data in the map, and then when we hover our mouse over the relevant country, we can see the count of employees. We can also look at that data across multiple dimensions, such as business unit, job, department. We can have heat maps across business and company, business unit and company, gender and age group, ethnicity and age group. And if we go back to the map and we drill into a particular country, clicking on Great Britain, we can see our results set has changed and 16 employees have answered yes to showing symptoms in May. And the rest of the result set is filtered appropriately. Okay, so going back to our dashboard, our main dashboard. So we can present in our dashboard information that's collected in the survey and show how that data changes over time. We can output information that's held within our HCM solution, for example, such as the employees that are furloughed and not furloughed. Now let's have a look at an example of a pivot grid. We'll take this one, who's in regular contact with their line manager. And it looks, it does the same thing essentially. We've got our prompts on the left-hand side. We're able to filter across a number of different dimensions as required. So let's do that. Let's find out of who said no, they're not in regular contact with their line manager. In the finance department. And so our result set's been filtered. So that's another example. And back to our dashboard. The other thing that we can do is look at how the data is changing over time. So again, another pivot grid that we can go into here is positive cases monthly trend. So if I pick up this pivot grid, we can see the employees that have tested positive in our May survey, June survey, July survey. This, of course, is just demo data, and certainly we hope that's not going to be the case for your organisation. You're able to filter again as required, so you want to look at that for a particular department, and so on. You're able to filter it as required. and look at it in a different format. Okay, we can also set some thresholds if helpful. Okay, another area that I would like to cover with you today is internal mobility. So as customer demands shift, often a redistribution of skills is needed. As organisations reinvent themselves or adapt to deliver new services or products, new skills are needed, existing roles are adapted. Capacity planning becomes really important to safeguard against illness impact for staff and protecting some staff from being overwhelmed. To enable portability of skills across the organisation, to enable the best use of people resources, understanding your people capacity and capability is key. So what are the critical skills and roles that the organisation needs, which are vital to ongoing value creation? What skills and capacity do the workforce have now? From assessing your workforce profile, how can you source the skills and availability that you need from what you have? Where are your vulnerabilities? How can you be creative with excess capacity? Do you need a contingent workforce to develop resilience and protect against illness impact? How can you put the skills that you have to the best possible use? Plan it out. Determine an action plan. Create pools of people to support key services and skills to increase your resilience. Move people to different roles, to different working patterns potentially. There may be occasions, unfortunately, where you need to step people down, identify levers, albeit perhaps temporarily through furlough. So I'll now take you through an example process on how we can quickly gather the information that is needed to help you understand and assess the workforce profile, your people capacity and capability now. Again, it's using the PeopleSoft Activity Guide framework. Okay, and now we're in our example internal mobility activity guide process. And what we're doing here is we're walking our employees through a series of steps that will enable them to receive information about the mobility process and policy in the form of a video and documents, enabling them to verify that their information is correct, as we've seen previously, allowing them to choose the roles that may be of interest to them, allowing them to update, to view and update their talent profile, and also we've got a questionnaire and a summary at the end. So we've got a couple of videos here. So you may want to include a video around internal mobility in your organisation, what to expect, what the benefits of it are, why it's necessary. You may want to include documents. So in this context, you might want to have your policy and FAQs to enable your staff member to view and download those documents. You can also ask them to acknowledge those as well so that you have an audit trail if required. Moving then into personal data. What we're doing here is allowing our staff member to verify the information that we've got on the system at the moment is up to date and correct, as we've seen previously. So verifying that their contact information, verifying their address is up to date, their emergency contacts. So again, any other components that you want the employee to view and validate as part of the process can be included within a section. What we're doing here in this next step, interest lists, is allowing our employee John to be able to choose the roles that are of interest to him. And he's chosen 3, the manager accounting, the MD and finance director roles, as you can see. So yeah, clearly ambitious guy. What this is doing is it's allowing the employee to not just enable, you're not just allowing them to pick the roles that are of interest to them in the mobility process, you're always also allowing them to compare their current skill set to the skill set that is required of that role. So if we click on Compare Profiles, this is going to tell John his percentage match to that role. So John is a 60% match to the Senior Manager Accounting role. And what's happening here is there's a role profile that's been set up, and that's using profile management. And the requirements of that role and the proficiency levels of that role have been set up. In this example, there's competencies, there's education, there's language skills, certifications, and responsibilities. But you don't have to go to this level. You could keep it really light and just have key skills that you are looking to for employees to assess themselves on and to compare themselves to the roles that are available in your mobility process. So this is using the delivered profile management functionality. Again, that's really configurable. You can set up any content types and the attributes that you want to track, and then compare, allow employees to compare themselves to it. Okay, so let's just go back. And if John wanted to add another profile that was of interest, he'd simply just add a profile, look at it, and then add it. But I think he's got enough there, so let's move on. So John has indicated his interest in 3 roles, and he's able to see his percentage match. Then we can ask our staff member to validate their talent profile. You can include a guidance page if you want to here, just about what's expected of them. And again, we've got a number of different items of content that we're outputting, but you don't have to. As I say, you could keep it real simple and just have, for example, key responsibilities. So we've got 4 that are here. So John might then want to add another responsibility and simply click on and say, I'm also responsible currently for generating reports. This is actually a rating model to enable you to pick how you want to rate, but that could be defaulted in, and enabling the employee to then save their proficiency level in generating analytical reports. So you could keep it just as simple as this to enable your employees to say, I'm responsible for doing these things, and this is how proficient I feel I am in them today. Or you could split it out into various types of content, so responsibilities, language skills, certifications, education, special projects, enabling your employee to go through and update their proficiency levels and, claim the skills that they've got. The final, the penultimate step in our process is a questionnaire. Again, you might want to ask your staff members, if you are redeployed, are there any special circumstances, family or medical, that would need to be taken into account? Might they consider a change of working pattern? And if so, what is it? So let's just go in and complete that. And I'm able to pick a multiple, what working patterns would suit me, and when could I change? So this is just an example questionnaire, just to give you an idea of, the things that you could do. The, questionnaire framework, as we said again, is really flexible and configurable. Single choice, multiple choice, date-based, text field. We can have sections within our questionnaires. So you can ask the employee any questions that you need to ask them in order to determine their capacity, their capability for your mobility process. So save my answers, mark complete, and what's next? Well, you can see that these are all the steps that I've been through. You can see when it was completed. You know, some steps are optional, so you don't have to complete them. Some steps are mandatory. And it's a prompt and a reminder for our staff member to just go back to a particular step and mark it complete if required. Okay, so once employees have been through this process, you will have validated their key personal information is up to date and accurate. You'll have captured the job roles that they're most interested in. You'll understand the skills and the proficiency levels staff have claimed. You'll know the working patterns that they can accommodate. You'll know any special circumstances that need to be considered. Hugely valuable data for you to successfully plan out your mobility process. What I'd like to show you now is some functionality that exists within Core Profile Management that enables you to search and compare profiles to help you find people that are most suitable for certain roles. So Profile Management, as I say, it's part of your Core HCM solution. There's functionality, search and compare profiles. And in this example, I'm looking for the manager job profile that's in accounting. When I call this up, what I'm seeing is the requirements of that role that we've set up in the job profiles. As I say, we've got competencies, we've got degrees, we've got licenses, certifications, we've got responsibilities, but you don't have to go to this level. You can just keep it really simple and just have responsibilities or skills as required. Whilst you're looking at the requirements of the role profile, you might say, well, I don't want to search on all of that. I might say, I want to remove certain elements of it. I might want to remove degrees, for example. So you're then able to decide the elements that you want to search on. And when you're ready, click on search. And it's going to go away and find you the people that match that search. And we can see we've got our employees here listed out with the one that scored the most at the top. You'll see the percentage score. And what you can do then is select the employees that are you're most interested in. So let's select the top 5 for us to go and do a more detailed analysis. I should call out, actually, with a little bit of extension, you can also output here whether that person has shown interest in the role that you're searching for. So you're trying to find who is the best fit and have they shown interest in it. So we know that John did. He did show interest in this role. And the other thing that you can do is some organisations like to say, well, yeah, you've shown interest in it, and which is your first choice, which is your second, third and fourth, and so on. That's not delivered. That would require a little bit of extension, but it just gives you an idea of what you could do. So now we've selected the people that we want to drill a bit deeper on, and then we can compare their profiles. So then we get the requirements of the job role, and we're able to see the percentage match with people lined up side by side. So you've got your overall match at the top, your percentage score, and then you're going down into your competencies. So, whether you're able to see your percentage score for each element. So conceptual thinking, Rosanna's an expert, John's fair, and you've got a percentage match. Okay. Similarly with the rest of the content, your licenses and certification, your responsibilities. And it works on the basis that you have no match, partial match, complete match, or the person is overqualified. You can also print if required. So again, this is really enabling you to plan out how where you're going to move people to, into what roles, find the people that are most suitable. Just going to do that search again. One thing I should have pointed out is when you get to this point, you can, of course, download and export to Excel. Okay. Also, you can find jobs for people. So if we look at John Patterson, we'll be able to pick up John's record. We'll be able to see all of the skills that have been captured on John's talent profile, competencies, degrees, whatever content we've captured. So for the skills that John has claimed, we can go and find the most appropriate roles for John. Again, we can actually edit before we do the search. Actually, we don't want to search on honours and awards. So that's not a factor that's going to influence our percentage score. Let's now search. And again, we're presented with, based on the search criteria that we defined, we're presented with the roles that John scores most highly against. So senior manager accounting. That's good. And then we can select the job profiles to compare. And again, we're seeing for John, against the skills that John has claimed, how does this compare to each of the job roles, and what is the percentage match overall at a high level and at a detailed level. Again, that's printable. And you can just pick certain sections as well if required. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a feel for how, once you've got that data in, how you can then go and find the most qualified people for roles in order to plan out your moves, and also find the best jobs for people to plan out your moves, and how you can update your search criteria according to what you need to do. Now let's take a look at talent pools. So talent pools are part of the career and succession planning module and can be really useful in this context. So I'm just pulling up an example. So as you're thinking about the areas of the business where you need to increase resilience, perhaps to safeguard against illness impact, perhaps to avoid areas becoming overwhelmed, you can use the talent pool functionality to ensure you have the right people capacity and capability for key areas of the business and certain business functions. In this example, we want to increase resilience for remote customer care management. And so we've set up a talent pool to track the people that can support this function, based on their skills and their availability. It's super quick and easy to set up. So we just basically set up our talent pool, we define the name, we can associate additional attributes, business unit, job code, job family, department, company, as you can see. The membership of the talent pool can be determined through logic, or you can just simply add people to the talent pool. And once you've got the people into the pool based on their skills and their availability, you can also then track their readiness. So you might have a situation where certain people need to be brought into that business function as an emergency. These are actually just translate values, so it's really quick to set these up. So you determine what your values are. You might also want to track impact of loss and risk of leaving, and you can also capture notes if helpful. And you've got a summary then of performance and career, job data and salary history as you need it. But again, it's a very quick and easy way to define the areas of the business or functions that you want to increase resilience, to build a pool of people that can either be employees, they can be contingent workers, they could be applicants, to ensure that you have sufficient resilience to support that particular function. Finally, I'd like to run through offboarding with you. It is an unfortunate reality that some organisations will need to step people down, and redundancy situations can occur. PeopleSoft offboarding can accommodate involuntary and voluntary separation processes. Also, different roles can carry out different tasks within the process. I'll take you through an example now. In order to do that, I need to log in as an employee who is leaving. So I've come to Abigail's employee self-service homepage, and you can see that she's been allocated with an offboarding tile. So if a job action and reason has been added within job data, termination with the relevant action, redundancy, involuntary, etc., this can then trigger the relevant offboarding process and cause the tile to be added to the employee self-service homepage. So just going to log in, it tells Abby the steps that are needed, and then you can obviously see the same sort of principle applies. We're using the activity guide framework. We are bringing in the relevant components we want Abby to update and verify. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what you can do. So you can, in this example, again, we're getting Abby to verify that contact details are up to date, verify the address is up to date, verify the banking details are up to date. If you're using absence management, you can check your, get your employee to check the absence balances. You can also get the employee to acknowledge certain things. So acknowledging submission of final expenses, acknowledging that they will return company property, completion of an exit survey. We've seen before, the questionnaire framework is really flexible. We can set up and include different questionnaires depending on the template, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. And also that you can see that there are tasks that have been allocated to different participants. So this is not a task for Abby, but we've kept it that Abby can see that task. You might not want to do that, but just to illustrate what's possible, there is a leavers checklist that Abby's manager needs to go through. So that isn't one for Abby, that is one for Abby's manager. And I'm just going to quickly log in as Abby's manager so that you can see what it's like from the manager's perspective. So logging into the manager homepage, Abby's manager's been allocated a team on offboarding tile. Click into the process, see the tasks that are required, and I'm taken to what I need to do with the visibility of where Abigail is in the process. So in this example, we're just asking managers to complete a checklist. Have you had a one-to-one with your employee? Have you confirmed their last working day? What are the steps that managers need to confirm and do when your employees leave? You can bring that into the system and include transparency within the process. You could imagine payroll will have tasks, and again, the same could apply. Okay, well, I hope that's helpful. That brings us to time and gives you a feel for some of the ways that PeopleSoft can help with the difficult situation where we all find ourselves in now. Hopefully that has been useful, and now we'll move on to questions.